How's your Christmas been?
Oh, lad, it was so long. I drank so much, and like I never really like. It's kind of like you have things on, and then you start off with great intentions. Or like, oh yeah, I'll go ahead, tonight, or I won't go on spirits, and sure, it's the next day, and you wake up at fucking 10 o'clock, and the inside of your mouth tastes like what I imagine the outer surface of Mars is like. So it wasn't a it wasn't a nice experience. Very enjoyable Christmas. Probably like obviously a bit too enjoyable because Kiva was 30 as well, so I organised a surprise birthday for her the other night. And thankfully she was very surprised. But so we had that as well, and then a couple of Christmas parties, yourself. What about you? You were home for a literal flying visit.
Yeah, I was only home for a very short stay. I had 3 nights out. So the first night was the day I literally got off the plane. I went to an impromptu quiz night with some of my friends, which was a shit show. I think we came like 12th out of 14 people, or 12 out of 14 groups. So we didn't do the best. It was like a Christmas team quiz. That was a pretty light session, in bed by 1 a.m. And then the next night was my night out, my annual night out with my school friends. It was a late one. Then I was out there on Wednesday as well. And that was a pretty late one as well. So yeah, it's one thing I definitely always find difficult around Christmas is like, as much as you would like training and everything like that to be somewhat intact, it's just so hard to keep it in good
Ah,
shape because you just feel wrecked half the time, and like
yeah.
because you're going to be spending so much time with other people and family, everything like that, it can just be a little bit of a bollock. But it's the way I look at it is like
Yeah.
you don't do that too often throughout the year. There's very few weeks throughout the year where I'll be as inconsistent as I will be around Christmas. And when you look back in a few years' time, you're probably going to remember the times you like enjoy with family and friends versus like the training sessions that you had around Christmas. Like it really does make a difference in the grand scheme of things. Like
Yeah. And that's definitely like I had a few people close to me have family members pass away and friends pass away, and definitely like while you and I are making a living off training and coaching and helping people make better choices, I genuinely think like that idea of like choices does definitely come into this. And I think like where like people get like we get so like in general people get so little time with their families, like if you've an aunt or a nana or a granddad or whatever the fuck you have, um I would way rather see any of my clients going out and enjoying themselves with those relatives rather than trying to eke out another 2.5 or 5 kilos in their squats just for those week or 10 days. And like I don't know. It's like you see people still putting up on Instagram like here's ways to fucking combat Christmas or
yeah,
fucking whatever the fuck. It's like Jesus Christ, just take a fucking day off. Like or like they're putting up the calories. Like when people like obviously there was a point when people didn't know there was calories in drink, and like yeah, that's fair enough. But I think Jesus Christ, if you're going out totting up your 3 pints of porter and your mulled wine and whatever baby Guinness you're consuming as well, like just give yourself a couple of days off, just enjoy yourself. But I don't know if that's more like, is it just a societal thing where we are so against the hedonic pleasures of Christmas that we see it as this almost like a that if you're big into your fitness and your bodybuilding and your training, is it just that we uh have a rejection of any of these kind of things, and there's a guilt associated with it. I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, I think a lot of people who are very into like bodybuilding and powerlifting, like anytime you get really bought into like one of those sports, I think it's very common to become extremely neurotic about it, right? And like you have people who, if they're a few grams off on macros, they like lose it. And when you have a
Yeah,
period of time when we have outside factors as well. Like, have other people that are probably going to say, we're not like take a little bit of time off. Like likely those people are probably right. People telling you to kind of take a step back and realize that bodybuilding, powerlifting, the pursuit of adding to your achievement list is not going to be the be all and end all throughout your life. Like, one thing I have definitely changed my kind of thought process is around like how to handle Christmas, because I would have been that person before, putting up posts on Instagram talking about how you should approach Christmas, how you can limit damage. And the Christmases where I've applied that information have actually made me enjoy Christmas less, because I was like micromanaging like days which didn't necessarily need to be micromanaged. And I've been doing it for so long that like a week past Christmas, 2 weeks past Christmas, you're pretty much back to where you were pre like enjoying yourself with those pleasures. And like, one thing I was saying to my friends when I was back at home, because a lot of my friends don't take gym like seriously the way I do. Like, they definitely don't do it as a profession, and they're definitely not like probably won't even make it to the gym like 3 times a week, most of them, right? And that's completely fair. Like, that's just their life choices. They do other things. And one thing I was saying to them was like, I rather like, again, lose out on a few kilos of progress this week from training or something like that, to spend time with them. Because someone I generally haven't seen in a year from being in Canada. And I often think about like the difference between like adding to your achievement list or your CV or your resume versus adding to like your eulogy. Like, nobody is going to turn up at your funeral and be like, he was a great squatter, he had great biceps, like, he had a fantastic car or something like that. Whereas like, people are going to talk about the times they had with you. And if you only put yourself first in that kind of scenario and only put your achievements first, then you might not have people come to your funeral, or people like remember those things about you. And you might not have friends like long term, which is a lot of people get depressed because they don't have connection, they don't have community. That's not to say that you need to be going out and going on the piss. Like, you can form community in different ways. Like, I think the Irish culture is so much different to like abroad, right? Like, when I was just coming back for Christmas, I'm doing a mentorship at the moment with Austin Stout, and like, it's like a group mentorship. And then he was like, okay, so the next call is like, the 26th of December. I'm assuming all the festivities would be finished by then for you. And I was like, it's only fucking beginning there in Ireland, And like, there's definitely going to be a difference in that, because I suppose Ireland is predominantly pretty much still like a Catholic nation, right? Or probably still, I'll call it, in the wings of the religious control of that, and Christmas being such a big thing because of that as well. But then as well, we also have the drinking culture in Ireland as well, and that kind of rings into, if you are going to be involved in the kind of lifting scene, you probably have a lot of friends who are involved in that too, and you probably like it to a degree yourself, right? And then that causes you to have that like little dilemma as to, is this the best choice for me to be doing? And like, should I be micromanaging this type of stuff? And it becomes a very difficult dilemma for you to kind of navigate. It can cause you to be really neurotic about it.
Like, I coach a lot of fucking, like, I know I say it like, but like the academy, like, a few of them were fucking texting me being like, oh, I can't get this session in. And it's like, I do really, really think like, where you do develop a skill as well, like as time goes on. I suppose maybe you and I have came full circle, where like, I remember like, I would give myself like Christmas Day off, counting calories, and I would binge to the point where I would be like nearly getting sick going to bed. Whereas like this year, I had but anyway, like you and I have probably came full circle. We've done the nearly to the point where you're nearly counting up the calories of your Christmas dinner, and now we're back to fuck it, just enjoy the day. But like, when you are talking to a lot of like younger 17, 18, 19, 20 something year olds, and they're kind of new in the door, and they're like, oh fuck, I always squat on a Monday. What am I gonna do? And then like, I nearly took it for granted, where I was like, just drop your lower body accessories from one day, move them down the week or get rid of them altogether and just squat before you bench and then move your secondary squat day a day later. And they were like, oh yeah, okay. But I was like, it was just so obvious to me. But I think for a lot of people as well, like there is something to be said for having that level of discipline
Absolutely.
with yourself as well. And I suppose one of the podcasts we did all year, not to plug it, but like, but I am plugging it. But the one we did with Alberto Nunez, where Alberto, like, you are talking to him and you do kind of get a really firm grasp that you're talking to somebody that really, really is in tune with obviously his body, but his dietary habits as well. And that does come from a point where he's lived this, and I'm saying for anybody listening, I'm saying this with kind of inverted commas, this extremist lifestyle where I'm sure he probably has spent Christmas Day tracking fucking calories, but now he's at the point where he just eats, and I suppose this intuitive thing kind of comes in. But even like you said it there, which is like, you get back on the wagon and you're where you picked off in 7 to 14 days, depending on your body composition. If you were very, very lean before Christmas and you put on 5 or 6 kilos over Christmas, it probably will take you 2 weeks to get it off. But if you were a bag of shite before Christmas and then you went off the rails, give yourself 10 or 14 days and you'll be back to a bag of shite again. But it's just like, whatever you were before Christmas, you'll return to baseline. Like it's no big deal. But I think where I suppose having that kind of comfort in knowing, like, oh Jesus, you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater if you just take a week off and just enjoy the Terry's chocolate orange or that pint of baby Guinness or whatever the fuck people have. But yeah, that was a bit long winded. And
Yeah,
where
I was gonna say, I think to a degree, like general population clients and general population, like trainees, almost do it better to a degree than the bodybuilders and powerlifters, because they're not as neurotic about it. Like, they will go in and be like, I'll take a little bit of weight off the bar today if, like, I'm not feeling strong, or if this exercise is out of order, if this machine is out of order, or I don't really feel like doing this one, I'll move on to like the next one. And that's, I suppose, like, obviously that's not ideal long term from a progression standpoint, but like in the kind of no man's land of Christmas and how like things are generally are, and recoveries maybe a little bit off, and things may be a little bit out of sync because gyms or wherever have been closed, like that could be the best option. Because sometimes it's just about kind of having those like tick the box sessions. Like, they're not going to be amazing. Like, realistically, you're probably not going to be competing like 2-3 weeks after Christmas. You're probably not, like, either in a bodybuilding context or in a powerlifting context. Like, most of the meets, like the first Irish meet with years, like the USAPL, one at the like start or mid of February or something like that. So
there is actually an IPF comp in Galway on the last week of January, and I was like, what a fucking cursed time of the year to put on a meet. I was just like, fuck. I was looking at it, I was like, fucking hell. Well, it's also like, my best friend Jamie is getting married in Croatia in June, so I have his stag, so I'm going to Celtic are playing Ross County the last weekend in January, and Jamie doesn't drink. Jamie's never drank, and so yeah, we're going over to Glasgow for that stag. So, but that's the weekend of that IPF. So that was my news. But yeah, but yeah, but you made, like, I think you made a fair point, which is like, regardless, like if you're a bodybuilder, and like, say you're doing the NBFI or you're doing fucking, I don't know, a Spring Classic in the RIBBF or one of these, like you're months and months and months and months away, like
fair away,
and I think and it's like that 5 or 6 days for that 30 to 50 grams of muscle you would have put on. Would you rather be enjoying a night with your mom and your dad and your missus or your friends or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so look for us.
I think myself as like a case study, like last year, an anecdote. Like last year I did my bodybuilding season as 2022, and I did nationals. And from the December competition, which was the last chance to nationals, I added 25 kilos onto my total. But I also took the piss that Christmas as well. Like I had like about 4 or 5 days of heavy drinking. Like again, would it be something I recommend to a client? Absolutely not. But like I'm not my client. Like I'm just gonna go out and fucking enjoy myself. That's how I want to enjoy myself. That's how I'm gonna fucking do it. Like and it's completely fine. If there's a trade off there, if that caused me to not have a 35 kilo increase in my total versus 25, like fuck those 10 kilos. Like a great time. Like and it's having to be like accepting that could be a trade off, but like again, it's probably not a trade off you'll ever know if that was the case. Like you're not gonna have like a science experiment where you just have you like enjoying yourself over Christmas and then you being like the best athlete or most disciplined athlete that you could over Christmas. Like it's never going to happen. So don't even kind of sweat yourself with those kind of thought processes. I think like my clients who probably do the best are probably the ones who like I get them to just be a little bit more lax over these times of years. It could be now. It could be like going up for a holiday. Like typically, if I'm having somebody get in shape or something like that for a holiday, I try to get them to like finish dieting just before they go on holiday, just so at least they're not going over there absolutely ravenous, but also so they can actually relax, like because like that's the whole point of like the holidays or a holiday in the summer. It's to like relax and enjoy yourself. It's not to be like, oh, like I can't see this vein that I was able to see last week, or like I know 200 kilos is feeling so much heavier than I know 190 felt last week. Like what the fuck, like in the grand scheme of things, it just doesn't matter. Like
no. What are you kind of planning then for the earlier stages of 2024? Are you going to fuck off anywhere? Are you going to stay rooted?
So, unfortunately, by the time this podcast came out, it's coming out on Wednesday, first week of the new year. I'm going to be going to Tulum in Mexico on the 4th for a week because I'm going to be turning 30 start of February. So that's going to be like my 30th trip away with Emma. Going to like a kind of day festival. So yeah, I'm just trying to kind of coast through this like next week and a half. I honestly, I'm sick of traveling. Like I've done so much traveling in 2023 that I do want to spend a lot of time like not doing that as such. But I think the kind of overarching plan is to move back towards Europe and kind of give up on the Canada dream. And probably one of the reasons for that is like feel like relatively disconnected being so far away. Like
of course.
Not like one thing I actually really don't like about like living over here is like I've a lot of clients in Ireland and like who'll be doing powerlifting meets or got guys who are going to be doing bodybuilding competitions in September as well. And like I want to be there and I want it to be. I don't want to necessarily have to pick and choose what competitions I come back for. Like it's first of all, it's not great from like actual kind of personability perspective with building a relationship with clients. But it's actually enjoyable, like like being actually there on the day and helping them. So that's one of the reasons I want to do that, and then some other kind of life related things with friends that I do want to be back for as well. So it was nice, it was enjoyable. Got to travel around the US and stuff like that. But ultimately, I think being so far away kind of made me thought about things I value more than maybe the travel perspective over here, right? What about yourself?
Yeah, I suppose for you, like, it was something you really wanted to do and you did it, and I suppose at least now you know it's not for you. And like, while Canada is obviously, what is it, a Toronto, a 6 or 7 hour flight, thereabouts.
Yeah, it's like
So,
4 to 6 hours depending on the wind.
On the wind, but like when you think about Australia, then relative to that, like that's another fucking can of worms. But I would definitely be similar to you, like where like I'd be quite close to my mother and quite close to my sister, and even like I feel a fair amount of guilt if I only go home to Cork once a month. And definitely as I get older and older, I am more aware that like my mother was had her 22nd anniversary, turning 49 there last 2 or 3 weeks ago. So like, even for her, like my mom isn't old by any stretch of the imagination, but like there is an awareness there that there's a finite amount of time. My sister's talking about going abroad then as well, like so I'd be quite similar to you, like where like you just kind of want to be around for these things and around for these people, and then equally like shit happens, things, friends have things on, family have things on, you just want to be able to be there for it. But no, for me, for the year, all I'm kind of hoping the tip away at the PhD, try and get that as wrapped up as I can, and hopefully graduate this time next year, because I'll have to submit and go through Viva and then do corrections. Hopefully there isn't many of those, and obviously actually graduate. So yeah, that'll all hopefully happen most of that happened this year. Hip rehab for the hip seems to be going pretty well. Pulled no, I am only back deadlifting started December 3-4 weeks. 170 feels different to the last time I was deadlifting, so that's quite positive. So hopefully 2024 I get back on the platform.
Nice.
At some stage. I definitely, if I do get back on platform, definitely won't be in wraps. I would definitely like to be in knee sleeves. Admittedly, there probably will be ins or rigor mortis knee sleeves, but knee sleeves nonetheless. I'd like to do just a walked out sleeved total and just see where I am there for my first comeback. If I did even 700, I'd be pretty happy with that. I'm significantly lighter than the last time. Last time I would have competed. So I think the last time I competed, I was like I weighed in at 111, but I was walking around at like 115, 116. So even at this next comp, like, now when that is, I don't know, like probably the latter end of the year, maybe October. But yeah, I probably will be weighing in around 99, 103 kilos and around that kind of span. So definitely in a lot better of a position there.
We might be in
and then,
Renton
yeah, I suppose like
for next competitions.
yeah, we probably will be on the same way. But like, I think for me, the longer, like, not the longer I'm in it, but like the older I get, I think there is much more of an appreciation for the hobby and why you have hobbies. Like, I suppose when I would have asked myself when I was 19, like what are you going to be doing when you're 27, I definitely wouldn't have guessed I would have been doing any of this when I started out my undergrad. And obviously I got into it because I had my own kind of aspirations for coaching and whatever else. But I think having powerlifting as the hobby or bodybuilding as the hobby or whatever way you want to look at it, you do love it that bit more when you kind of get to be able to dip in and out of it. Because like for me, it's very easy to feel very committed to it all the time, because I obviously get so much from it. Like I've met loads of friends from it. I really, really value the kind of discipline I get from powerlifting and from kind of like making better food choices. But I I do look forward to coming back to the platform. I do feel very, very lucky be able to kind of make some bit of a recovery so far. Not that I make it sound as if I was sitting in an oncology ward getting chemo, but yeah, it's very very nice to be back seeing some weight on the bar. Where
Yeah. I was going to say it's.
I was just going to ask you, where are you going to be in somewhere sunny in Europe, or are you going to be somewhere cold in Europe, or where are you kind of planning on shacking up?
Likely going to be Spain. So Spain store will be making a return. So the thing about
Spain
that
story. Better than old Ray guys.
Yeah, kind of bleep that part out. But what was I going to say? Yeah, well, I'm going to be competing in the April Ab Series.
Oh
So
fuck yeah, you're in rap.
yeah, so like the plan is to kind of be out of here by around then. Like, I'd love to have a few Sunday sessions down in abs, get my knees wrapped
Yeah.
leading into
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Because like, even though I'm training at a powerlifting gym now, I can't really rely on people being there all the time to help me. Um,
yeah,
because I go at times when there's not a huge amount of people there. Like, I still pretty much train on the same like abs days, just because I've been
yeah,
training that way for so long, and that's just how my weeks have been kind of built around. Like, my hardest work day is Monday, which is a rest day, and then my
yeah,
Sunday, which is my heavy squat day, is a complete rest day, which is a rest day from work, which had a rest day before. So that's just the way I still have my training split laid out, and
yeah,
different. Like, if you're training in a gym that is not club based, the way abs is, for example, or I don't know, probably a lot of powerlifting gyms don't have like the ab system like in place, right, where everybody trains on the same day with the same kind of format as such. Like, your deadlifts be on, your heavy deadlifts be on Thursday, and your heavy squat be on Sunday. Like, because obviously people are getting coached by different people, which is completely normal. But then when it comes to this scenario where you're trying to prep and wrap your knees, for example, if you don't have that kind of same environment, it's a lot harder to make sure you're getting a consistent wrap, for example. Make sure you have consistent spotters, and even just the environment. When you're doing a heavy squat by yourself versus when you have a heavy squat and there's 5 spotters there, it's a completely different feeling. Like, you don't feel as nervous when you have like 5 spotters there. You're probably more, you're pumped with adrenaline. Well,
yeah.
especially if you're training with people who are like much stronger than you. Like, you don't necessarily feel as a nervous as much as that you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of the stronger people.
Don't fuck up. Yeah,
Yeah. Whereas, like, when you're doing it by yourself, it's completely different. So that's like one thing I definitely do want to try get a little bit more of as I come into that competition, because like, I haven't done an ab series in a long time. I think the last time I did one was 2021. And obviously it's grown like a lot since then. It's going to be my first time in the Pro-Am division as well, even though I'm coming in as one of the lowest ranked. But I have my numbers there from being in sleeves, so I'm hoping that stands me.
yeah. Hopefully you don't turn into one of these people now that squats less than their wraps than their sleeve squats.
Oh God, no. Hopefully not.
Everyone can look at Shane and be like, "Oh, Shane squatted exactly 10 kilos more, so you can get 5% out of the wraps."
But yeah, as you were saying there in regards to, uh, I suppose the persistency you've been able to have throughout, like, the injury to still be involved or wanting to get back on the platform, like, a lot of people don't really have that. Like, now, like, say for example, a general population, like, trainees, it's hard for them to kind of find the buy in to training long term, especially around shit like that happening, because they might not necessarily have that overarching kind of goal or direction as such. Whereas, like, as we've talked about like multiple
Yeah,
times, like, if you play a sport, like, it's really well defined what it is for you to participate in that, and as well, then being part of a sport has like offshoot benefits, like the community aspect. Whereas, like, you don't really get that if your goal is just to go to the gym, keep fit, and that's a fine goal to have. That's your goal. Like, more people need to be doing that. But I definitely do think as people get older, one thing they miss out on is the ability to kind of have people around them. And talking to my friends about this over Christmas, like, one of the reasons I probably found it an issue to kind of make any connections while I'm up and over here in Canada is because it's just training in a gym, but besides going to like the powerlifting gym. So if you just go to a normal gym,
yeah,
like, most people are just there to train, right? They're not necessarily there to like make friends and stuff like that. It's a lot harder to do.
yeah,
People probably just have like their earphones in and just train away. Completely fine. But then if you go to a sports specific gym, you're probably going to be talking to people who have the exact same goals as you. It's a smaller environment potentially, are going to be kind of sharing equipment. You get to talk to people and like kind of build connections that way. And if you don't play rugby, you don't play football, as you get older, it's kind of hard to do that unless you're still friends with those kind of old mates. But then if you never played a sport, what do you do other than kind of...
Yeah. No, you're dead right. And I think that's kind of where, like, I think that's kind of where a lot of people, I think, lose out on the opportunity of sport and competition. And I think, like, competition kind of for a lot of people is like, oh, scary word. But, like, competition in an individual sport is kind of funny because, like, particularly like powerlifting, because it's like, if someone's way stronger than you, like, Barry, go out and fucking brick the cunt walking in before weigh-ins, like you're not going to do anything to upset them on the day, like unless you go out and headbutt them on the way to the platform. Like, so, like, that's out the window. Like, and then if you play, like, when you're playing a match against someone, you're head to head against someone. So, like, if you're playing, I don't know, darts, you're against someone. But I think powerlifting is kind of unique in the sense that it gives people an opportunity to kind of compete against themselves. I think obviously, like, we think powerlifting is great, but I think as a vehicle for a lot of quite positive health-based behaviors, like going to the gym, like if you, like, you're telling me there's a sport and it's going to encourage people to go to the gym at a minimum of 3 times a week. It's a weight class sport, so they're kind of going to be in some way intuitively aware maybe of at least their body mass, their weight. You're going to be probably put in like, hopefully in a club or a gym environment. Hopefully you have a coach, so you're going to be kind of like in contact with people as well. And I think even like CrossFit or anything like that, like I think a lot of these kind of there's a new one that's after coming out as well. I don't know, I can't think of the name of it. It's basically like you do a lift and then you run a mile, and then you do a lift and then you run a mile.
High rocks, is that it?
Oh, it could be.
Yeah, it's kind of like a form of CrossFit. It's just like, I think it's just like another offshoot kind of brand event.
Yeah,
If you get...
it's the incest baby of CrossFit and low distance running, but like, it's like, I do think that's where, like, I think competition bridges a gap for an awful lot of people, because, like, I have friends that, like, were avid soccer, rugby, hurling, whatever, when they were kids, but, like, as adults they're really, really missing out on sport and the opportunities that sport gives us, like. And, like, I suppose at a community level, like if you look, like, if you're looking for better outcomes for people as a whole, like, if people are more involved in physical activity, more involved in social situations, you just see better outcomes in their quality of life as a whole. I just kind of wish that I do kind of wish that the competition aspect of powerlifting, that a lot of the barriers were kind of drawn back. And I think what's lovely, like, we all want to see powerlifting grow and like become this, like, big thing where people can make money, but at the gym I train in, there's in Best Body in Carlow, we had a competition, and it was like a little in-house comp. And I think these are the things that really, really draw people into the sport. And, like, while the IPF are doing their job and USAPL are going to do their job and the fucking IPO are doing their job, I think even, like, a gym that has a combo rack, that has some plates, that has some fucking, like, Ian Benson did an Urban Barbell there recently enough that they had, like, an in-house meet. We try and do it in Best Body every 6 months, because it gets people into the sport, but B, it gets people in the gym involved in something. And then all of a sudden, you have a bit of a community in the gym, you have a bit more community in the powerlifting world. And, like, we closed the gym for like 5 or 6 hours on a Sunday, and there was, like, whatever, 20 or 30 people competing, and, like, most of these were, like, kids. They were teenagers. They had no singlet, no knee sleeves, no belt, no wrist straps. Came out, like, everybody was screaming at them. They hitched every deadlift, didn't pause a single bench, didn't squat to depth once. most of them enjoyed it, and now most of them are kind of coming into the club or the kind of little powerlifting community in Best Body, and that's kind of like what I'd love to see more of in 2024 is more of these little small comps to pull people in. I think like the Abs Teen comp definitely is a good vehicle for that. I think it pulls a lot of like young people in, but definitely like any kind of powerlifting gym, not powerlifting gym, but definitely any kind of gym that has some equipment, like fucking like all you need is bar and plates. Like it doesn't need to be calibrated. It doesn't need to be anything like these are all newbies, but I think that does a lot to pull people into the sport and kind of create some, even like it creates a nice atmosphere in the gym because all of a sudden you're like, oh, I know your name.
Yeah, sure. When you think about like small group PT gyms, like they will do quite regularly, like either challenges, they'll have like a team kind of thing that they're training for, like all together. It could be like a photo shoot, it could be some type of performance goal, and that will kind of be the bulk of their training sessions leading up to like whatever the kind of end point that goal is. And like powerlifting would be pretty much the exact same thing. Like my first ever competition was like a deadlift only meet.
And that's what I was thinking. I was even in my head. I was like, first competition I did was an IDFPA bench only competition in Mallow in 2014 maybe 2014. So I was like 15 or 16 maybe, and then you did your first comp. It was like an SPF deadlift only comp, wasn't it? Yeah. So like I mean like the two of us are here. The two of us are here because of little small bench only or deadlift only competitions, but that's what drew us in. For the same, and like for me anyway, I don't know what your reason was, but I was like, oh, I'm afraid of squatting.
One of my reasons for doing just the deadlift only meet as well. First of all, I put off doing so many meets prior to that. Like the amount of times I was meant to do IPF ones, or I was telling people that I was doing them and just never pulled the trigger. Just, I suppose, to a degree, it was like having self doubt or not want to like embarrass myself, because at the time I was kind of like self coaching to a degree, didn't really know what I was doing, and that just provided a nice kind of opportunity, kind of dip my toes into it. Like I knew I could deadlift decently, at the time, so I was just like, fuck it, I'll give this a go. And then AJ, Hinge Master Flex, he was talking to me there. He's a member of ABS at the time, and he's like, I'll pass your name on to Jay. And Jay texts me, and he's like, oh, I should come down to the gym. Came down to the gym, and that was that. Like, so it's pretty much being kind of thrown into the environment in the sense of giving it a go in a no pressure environment, but then also from there being like, fuck, that was fun, and wanting to essentially get guidance from like some of the best people in the industry, and it's kind of just continue to evolve to be like that, right? But you don't necessarily get there from, again, just kind of thinking about these things, or you don't necessarily need to be going into the top level type competitions and competing against the best people straight away. Like I think for a lot of people, it is going to be about having fun. Like the top spot is reserved for a very few number of people, and if that's all you care about, like that's never going to be fun, really. Like unless you have that potential to be there, right? Because like how to say, say for example, I've like never like won a meet. I would say I don't think I've ever won any of the competitions I've done. Might have been close, yeah, like a very very low kind of pool of competitors, but it wasn't like the ultimate outcome. Like the ultimate outcome was like to, like, as cliche or cringe it is, to like compete against yourself, because like it's all you really can do. Because like one thing I get quite often when I'm talking to like new clients coming on or something, and they're like, I'm really competitive and I don't want to compete until I can compete to be good enough. And you can compete, but not necessarily be competing against number one. You can compete against a guy who's like just ahead of you. Like that could be enough to kind of be your motivation to push a little bit harder. I think that's like one great thing about when you are training in a gym with people who are of similar strength levels to you, because you are always kind of going towards this similar kind of destination. Like I'm never going to be squatting with Jake Brennan and being like, oh, I can't wait to like, squat 435 kilos because I'm on this guy's tail. But if I do it with somebody who's in my weight class, it's going to be fun to train with them because we can kind of bust each other's balls. We can push each other a little bit more. We can support each other. And like when we compete against each other, we can also like cheer each other on and kind of like celebrate each other's wins. But it doesn't necessarily need to be a case where the need to compete or need to participate in sport has to be the number one. That's not necessarily just being like competitive. Has different kind of meanings behind it. Like
what I'm always amazed by when I hear people talk about starting powerlifting, and I love it in a way, because you're just like, oh my god, this is like, I wish I was here. Like I wish I had this like energy. But like nobody looks at like a hurl and a slitter and goes, oh, I'm not going to play a hurling match until I'm Kilkenny senior standard, or until I'm good enough to play senior, then I'll play. It's like, that doesn't happen. Like junior D hurling exists for a reason. It's like, go in there, flake a fella beside you for a half an hour, and then we'll throw another lad on to do the same job in the second half, and then we'll all have a hoolie then afterwards. And like, if you've never played the game before, that's obviously where you're going to start. And I think that's one thing Jay did really, really well with the AB series when he created the idea of the Division 2, is that in the Division 2, Division 1, Pro-Am, Pro, and obviously the clash structure, like for the heavier lads, like you've a clear pathway up. And that exists in loads of other sports. And that's where I think like powerlifting definitely is a sport that probably, even internally in Ireland, probably could do with something like where, like before there was like novice and beginner comps and all of these kinds of things. But I think that's where, like I was saying earlier, I think that's where local gyms can bridge the gap. Just run an in-house comp, charge people €20 to do it. But I think in the really nice thing about the ab structure is that it gives you like, oh, when I have a 400 dots now, I'm against all these guys. And it could take you like 2 years, 3 years of competing, 4 years of competing to get a 441 dots or whatever it is now, 461 dots to get up into the Pro-Am. But it gives you a clear pathway. But I think when you're in a weight class, or when someone's new, they're just like, okay, there's an 83 kilo weight class, and then you're going, okay, so there's this Damien Nam. Okay, so I'm squatting 105 kilo, and three, okay, and I'm benching 65, and he 107. Like, you're like, oh fuck, and that becomes so esoteric then that you're like, well, I'm weak as shit. Well, there's no point doing this. And like you said earlier, where someone is like, oh, I'm only going to compete when I'm good enough, because you're looking at that and you're like, I'm never going to be a Damien Nam. Because like people are crazy, but they're not fucking deluded. Well, some are, but like no one's looking at that being like, oh yeah, that's achievable in 6 to 12 months. And like that's where I like newbies going in and doing, and like you had a client there that she was new doing an abs comp, and like you're going in and you're against other people of your own ability, and like you're like it's capped as well, which is really, really nice. That like, unless someone shows up and they're a complete fucking outlier and they smash everyone. But I think it's nice kind of introductory comp. But I do think where I hope the difference between the USF kind of do really hone in on local small comps. Like, not every comp they run needs to be a 2-day 100 entry fucking competition. Like, if there's a gym with 3 power racks, keep your flight small, have 30 or 40 there, what referees are around, and like hope, like, again, like, I don't know enough about it. Is that nearly out of the question to run a 1 day comp? I know they used to happen, but that's kind of the route I'd like to see them go, because all of a sudden then, like, if you're a Masters one lifter, you're like, oh yeah, there's a comp on down the road from me, sure, I'll do that, rather than having to go up to fucking Belfast or Cork or Dublin. And that does create another barrier, I think, as well, when all of the comps are these kinds of high production, high they are intimidating. Like, even for me, I think the first apps comp I did that was out of a little bit out of COVID, there was fucking fire breather at, and like I was competing in my own gym, and I was like, what the hell? I was like, this is insanity. And like, you'll have, like, I'm sure you'll have the same, where like you can't factor in that, like, wow factor, or that kind of like, oh Jesus Christ, because like you're on a platform, and even like at a local comp now in the IPF, like my sister did comp in Phenom, and she was like, what's the story with all the fucking cameras? Like, could you imagine going out and just like being like, I'm going to play five-a-side soccer, and all of a sudden there's 3 lads walking around out the back with cameras. There's 3 or 4 cameras across the platform, and then nearly everyone in the audience has their phone out as well. It, like, that, even that, you're like, what the fuck? If you're from any other sport, there is no amount of media in that at all. And like, if you do think about it, like it is mental in comparison to other sports.
Yeah, like I understand it to a degree, because like obviously people who are in the media teams, they do want the sport to grow. People who are competing want to also capture their experience on the platform, because for some people it might only be one of the first times they ever do it, or they want to just have documentation of their progression in like a nice package. As I mentioned earlier, some people want to use it as a way to kind of grow the sport, because to get more eyes on it, it does have to be kind of flashy. Because, like, realistically, if all you're seeing is like a shitty phone footage,
Oh,
probably
100%.
catch anybody's attention. Like, one of the reasons I think, say for example, bodybuilding is so small in Ireland is because it doesn't have that
Yeah,
around it.
it doesn't.
Because like
Yeah,
the natural bodybuilding competitions, like they're like relatively well attended. They have good competition base coming into it. Like, there's good numbers on stage, but they don't have anything really when it comes to media. Like, they have like an official photographer, and other than that, there's nothing. Like, there's no live streams or anything like that. And because of that,
yeah,
people are like, natural bodybuilding. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So I
yeah,
think they could definitely learn from the likes of powerlifting. I can see how it's like it could be very, say, intimidating for first time competitors as well, coming into a powerlifting meet and seeing all of that kind of shit, because it's not stuff you are really expecting if you haven't been to a meet before. Like, if you've never been to an Am Series event before and you go into that, like, to compete for the first time, you're like, I can't even see because there's like smoke machines going everywhere, right? Like, I can't see the head referee, for example.
yeah.
And like, yeah, I suppose that's all part of like putting things in place to help this sport grow. But yeah, again, it can be a little bit intimidating for some people. Like, you're not going to see that fucking junior B football match. Like,
No, I suppose like, again, I just think, I do think it's funny, like when, like, obviously I'd be a bit involved with the GAA, is that like, if you brought someone that was just like playing football at a junior, like if you brought your like few friends to play GAA to an ab series, and they were like, and are ye all like the best in the world? You're like, no, we're all shite. And they're scratching their heads, being like, why is there 7 cameras here if you're all terrible? And do you know, it's like, you just can't draw parallels to it. But I definitely agree with you. I think that's where powerlifting is marketed really, really well. And I think the likes of Mark Stale and Mario Rodriguez, all these lads, definitely don't get enough credit, and particularly Mark Stell, because obviously Stell was the one that kind of like started the live stream, and Jay was the first to kind of get the series live streamed, and now every IPF competition has a live stream. Like before, I think when I would have started kind of watching powerlifting, I think World IPF Worlds would have had a live stream. Big Dogs would have had a live stream, and maybe the current US Open, there would have been a handful of comps, and now nearly every comp is live stream. And I definitely do agree with you. Like that's where powerlifting probably is so far ahead of other sports then as well. Because even with the GA, like if you're lucky, the Munster Club final might be live streamed. The Leinster Club final might be live streamed. Just because it costs so much money and there's so much startup cost to it and so much time and even proficiency with it, like that has to go into it. Is pretty wild.
Yeah, as well as when you think about when it comes to something like football or something like that, right? Like there's matches every single weekend, and there's probably multiple matches on at the same time, and there's only limited people who might have those skill sets to do that too. Whereas like with powerlifting competitions, there's only so much really that are happening, and there's even though there's a small pool of people like Mark who can do the live streams, for example, it's still infrequent enough for them to be covered. So you do have that benefit. Say, for example, over here in Canada, there's different teams of people who will do live streams, right? So like there could be multiple meets happening at once, and there'll always be somebody to cover to a degree. Now, obviously, because Canada is so vast as well, there's obviously different kind of there's going to be differences in quality as well between the companies of that. But like when you like, I've watched a lot of like live streams for like powerlifting competitions like outside of Ireland, as well as like even bodybuilding competitions. Like I've watched like live streams for like the NPC, who are like the biggest bodybuilding like federation in the world, right? Like they're the Olympia's federation essentially, and some of their live streams are worse than an IPF or App Series live stream. You know, they might not have like commentary, for example, which makes it way shitter to watch. So like that type of stuff, like you kind of take it a little bit for granted when you're watching some of the IPF or Ab Series live streams, or even at events, because like they could be running smoother than events that you go to in different countries, for example.
Yeah, no, 100%.
One thing I suppose I wanted to touch on a little bit, I suppose, because it is our first one of the year. I suppose we won't talk about it too long because we've already gone like almost an hour, but talk a little bit about kind of like realistic goal setting and stuff like that for the new year. So I suppose a question I have for you is like, how are you helping some of your clients at the moment kind of approach 2024 in regards to whether it's the powerlifting goal, body composition goal, or whatever?
Yeah, I suppose, and like it was kind of one thing. It was kind of one thing I was talking to, just I suppose before we came on the call, I was doing a check-in, and we've kind of had a bit back and forth with one client about like his goals, because like on paper, not on paper, but there's kind of two parts of his brain working at the same time. There's the part that kind of really is performance based, really wants to set this total or hit this dots. But then there's another part of his brain that's heavily really wanting to get as healthy as he can, as fit as he can. And obviously they're not mutually exclusive, but I think there's a point where you obviously have to and like you say it all the time, like really see where your values are, what is important to you right here and now, and then is that going to be important to you in 6 months time or 3 months time when it gets hard. And I suppose a lot of that comes then into like what's motivating this change, because is it like when it does get hard to do it, or when you don't want to do it, how committed to the change are you? So I think like an awful lot of that kind of like you do kind of have to come a bit into yourself to kind of figure out what you want to do, why you want to do it. Like, so like that's, to me, that's kind of like the first part. And then after that, once you kind of have a good grasp on what you want to do, obviously like there's that SMART kind of acronym when it comes to goals, that there should be specific, measurable, attainable, Jesus Christ, or what the fuck was the R, Shane?
Relevant or realistic can kind of
Realistic,
go
and
between the
then
two of them.
time bound. And like, I suppose for the goals of powerlifters, it's like it's very like it's pretty easy. It's like, oh, what you want to do? Oh, I want to get stronger. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not very abstract. Like it's pretty fucking concrete. Like
Well, stronger is
um
abstract to a degree because it's like stronger in what capacity? Like what? How much stronger
yeah
are we talking about? Like,
yeah. But it's and then I suppose like you said there, how much stronger? It's like if you're talking to someone, you're like, okay, by the end of 2024, it's like that seems very very abstract. And I suppose this is where like I would never really have someone have a lot of, or at least for their coaching, at least have a bunch of goals by 2024 on squat 300 kilos. I want to bench 200. I want to pull 350. I think those goals they're very very abstract, and there's a lot that comes before you get there. And I think even for goal setting, like if you are doing powerlifting, even from block to block, week to week, you should probably have goals. And I think where a lot of people kind of get caught up is that like they in a new year is that you'll have a lot of people and they'll look for like and like it's a meme for a reason. Is like new year, new me. I'm gonna smash 2024. Any of this shit like and like we all laugh and cringe at it, but everyone still fucking does it. Like you'll like everyone still like gets a gust of wind after their hedonic week of eating shit and having Terry's chocolate oranges for breakfast. That like you do kind of get a little bit of a kick up the arse coming to January. Like, and I think for a lot of people, like that, like fleeting bit of motivation, if people could carry that into the rest of their year, they probably wouldn't find themselves in need of such an overhaul come the 29th of December. Because, like, I think, I think for powerlifting anyway, at least, like we can kind of, we can let ourselves get away with so much. We can be like, oh, I don't really need to track, like, or I don't need to track that tightly. And my resting heart rate's only 104. Like, sure, I don't really need to do much cardio anyway. And sure, Jesus, 3 hours of sleep, sure, that's fucking, geez, that's plenty across the week. And like, as powerlifters, like, we're probably a bit less conscientious than we like to think we are. Um, so I think to answer your question about goals, I suppose I we kind of try and go about goals the same way as we do all of the rest of the year. Try and have the long term always running. It's like that, but like I definitely don't like goals to be abstract because like it's like you said there of like, oh, I want to be stronger. It's like, well, like what do you mean by stronger? Do you mean like 5 kilos stronger on your squat, or do you mean like 50? And then like I think when things are a little bit more concrete, or when it's something you can actually stand over and stand on, um I think that's when you get the kind of the best out of people, for me anyway. What about yourself?
yeah, I definitely do think that like while having some targets in regards to numbers that you'd like to achieve toward like across the year, it's also important not to be like incredibly bound to those numbers because as you said there's so much that needs to go right for you to hit those like goals or those like landmarks. And a lot of things could happen. Like you could end up getting injured. You could end up having like a week where you do have to, I don't know, miss training for whatever reason or something like that. And even with that, even if you have a perfect year of training, like it could just be your rate of progression is not allowing you to get to that number. Like that's a fault, I suppose, of setting those type of goals because it's there's so little that's in your control in that scenario. It's not like somebody who has like a fat loss goal, right? The fat loss goal, like to a degree, you have such a level of control over it that like you could probably achieve it if you set yourself out for it, especially if you get all the kind of systems in place. But strength gain, as much as we'd like to think it's like a simple system, it's not as simple as we like. We all know people who could be training to the best of their abilities for all intents and purposes for like months and months and months, but they're still like plateauing on like certain lifts, and that's just it. Like it takes a while for you to go through that iterative process of finding out what is the sticking point for a certain lift and how to overcome that. Like it could just be like one simple thing that you need to come to help you overcome a plateau, but that's going to take you time to realize, and like that could be the thing that's like inhibiting you from getting to that point throughout the year. So I think having those goals there can be a good motivator for the overall overarching year. But as I said there, kind of break it down into smaller chunks, like the likes of your training blocks, the likes of your training week, is going to be a much better way to go about it. Because like when I start off a training block, for example, I'll think about, where I'm starting off my training block. Kind of have a pseudo goal that I'd like to reach by the end of it in regards to like what would be a realistic weight increase for me to make each week while maintaining like a set RPE or something like that, and try to aim towards that. And it wouldn't be anything like groundbreaking. It could be a weight that I've hit before, but it could be a weight that I'm hitting at a easier intensity, for example, or it could be 2.5 kilo more than I've hit before, for example. But like over across the year, like these kilos obviously add up, right? However, like when I'm working with clients, for example, and towards achieving these kind of overarching goals, the main thing, especially for the strength-based athletes, is like how can you construct like your kind of best weeks of training? Like how can you make the week just right now the kind of best it can be? Like the obvious one is just like making sure you turn up to your sessions. Like that's the obvious one, right? You can't like make the gains without turning up to the sessions, right? But if you complete 4 sessions across the entire month, that's 16 sessions. You do that across the entire year. I'm not good at maths, so I don't know, 104 sessions. I don't fucking know. Anyway,
It's like 50 dresses.
104. Get that up, JB. Anyway, whatever it is. But if you can do that across the entire year, you're probably more likely to be in the right direction towards
Oh
achieving.
my god, it's 16 by 12. Oh my god, I'm a fucking idiot.
What is
No,
it?
I'd be 192, would it not?
Something like that. Look, this is why we're powerlifting coaches and we're not mathematicians.
Pretty sure
Anyway,
it's 100.
but anyway,
I have to fucking do this one. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Jim. 16
but
by 12.
but
It's
outside of that,
192.
outside of that though, like if you get all those sessions complete and then you're thinking about, okay, that's like the base thing that I need to be doing. Outside of that, like how can I make that session better? Okay, well, I can, take videos of my lift so I can send to my coach for like accurate assessment. I can be honest with myself on rating RPEs. I can do my accessories with effort. Then outside of that, okay, what can I do to make the performance of that session better? Okay, I can go to sleep at a proper time, get sufficient amount of sleep. I can, be organized with my nutrition. I can plan my nutrition around my training session. So, I'm not eating it too quickly to my training session. So going with bloating, but I'm not eating it so far away that I'm like feeling dead by the time you go in there. And like if you are thinking about all of these little things that you're like just putting in line to have a better training session, those things will stack up over the course of the days, over the course of the weeks, over the course of the months. And then again, you're going to be more likely to achieve this overarching goal. So it's thinking about like what is the big thing that I want? What is that made up of? Like how realistically how long is it going to take? Then all the kind of process oriented goals that are going to they need to do to achieve them. I think like the way I typically go about my own goal, especially when it comes to training, is just like how can I maximize today? If you just are able to think about that in regards to like your next action, it becomes a lot simpler, and like the choices become a lot like there's less choices for you to essentially make, because you probably know, especially if you're getting coached, what the correct decision or the right decision would be closer to your goal, right? Obviously there's going to be plenty of times where you're thinking about trade-offs, but you would hope for the most part you are thinking about ways for you to make the best decisions towards that kind of ultimate goal. So yeah, I think it's trying to get people to develop like a mini kind of checklist for their day as to regards to like what would make today the best if I wanted to achieve that goal like long term.
No, definitely. Where I think powerlifting is kind of like a sport it is kind of funny in the sense that like you do only kind of do the sport once every, whatever, 16 or 20 weeks or 22 weeks or whatever. So like, what I've definitely noticed working with GA teams and it's kind of sports teams is that like they'll go through periods of like very high consistency and kind of motivation, but that'll kind of ebb and flow across the year. But I think in fairness to a lot of powerlifters, I think where we do kind of think very sequentially about things, and we kind of do think a lot about tomorrow rather than today. And I think you kind of said it there, which is really, really hits home for me. And maybe the way I think about things is that I wouldn't really think so much about the training session I'm going to have tomorrow. I'll think about what I need to do today. No, I'm not fucking high level powerlifter to any sense of the word, but it's one thing I definitely have tried to do a lot more with my clients this year, is to try and think about and I suppose it does kind of come with the soft skills, the coaching of kind of like, look, what way you're working this week, have the exams coming up, what can we be realistic about what we're going to achieve in this time frame? Because someone could say like, I have fucking nationals in 16 weeks, and it's like, yeah, but you're moving house, and then you have your sister's wedding, and then you have exams, and then your missus is going to break up with you, and then you're going to have nationals. That's the actual timeline. And it's like your training schedule doesn't happen in a vacuum the rest of your life. And like, that's one thing I really wish people really saw, was that it's not like you've your training life and you have your life that runs in parallel, and they're mutually exclusive and they don't interact. It's like, that's not fucking happening. Like, so like, even for me, one thing I like to do with people is to just be like, what's going on this month? What's coming up? What's happening? Like, and like, it does like, and like you were saying there, like it's not like, it doesn't, for a lot of coaches, like, it doesn't need to be this like, please fill out in the Google form what life events you have coming. like it doesn't need to be that. It can just be a conversation with someone like that you see, like you're chatting to them in a call or whatever the fuck. But like, I think even as a coach, having that information from someone really, really helps the decision making process. And I think that is like I said earlier, like, it is those soft skills that develop over time. But yeah, that was a bit of a tangent, but
yeah, it is. It's a tough process, because I suppose it is not as straightforward as just like, as I said there, like doing your SMART goals. Like, a lot of things are going to pop up in the interim. Like, I don't think I've ever had like a competition prep or a journey towards a certain goal which has been completely clean sailing. Like, it rarely ever happens.
yeah.
So it's important to, I suppose, be able to kind of develop the skill to kind of navigate those potholes or those obstacles. Like, one thing I'd often ask clients when we are kind of going through this process is like what are obstacles? Like, like, what's the reason you haven't achieved this goal today? Like, like, for some people it can be that there's external factors that are inhibiting them from achieving the goal, and they don't know how to plan around it. Like, say for example, it's a work schedule that's a little bit kind of crazy, and maybe the goal they're setting is actually a little bit too grand for the kind of current schedule, and as a result they're always falling short. And maybe because they're always falling short, they're maybe not actually putting their full effort into it. Right? Easy solution there, just like make the goal smaller. Right? Achieve a smaller goal, you'll have better systems in place because you'll be a little bit easier on yourself to degree, and then maybe you can set a bigger goal. But for some people it can be an internal factor. It can be like procrastination. Like, a lot of people maybe don't feel as confident in their abilities, and as a result of not feeling confident in their abilities, or maybe they're not really as confident in their knowledge and seeing goal, it can cause them to not want to step outside their comfort zone and maybe learn that skill that they're missing to achieve that goal, right? And those are things that you can work on, but they're not necessarily things that you're going to be able to work on completely fine by yourself. Some people do have like the the internal drive to overcome these obstacles by themselves. Some people do need somebody to give them a kick and say, "Oh, hold their hand." That's again what a coach is there for, realistically. And I always find it weird when people are a little kind of afraid to kind of reach out for help to a degree. Ultimately, I know a coach is never really there to judge to a degree. I do understand the hesitancy to a degree, right? Because you're maybe admitting that you are not good enough to see this through by yourself or something like that. Or you don't have the confidence to do it, so you need to get help. But at the end of the day, very few people are self-made. Very, very few people are self-made. I think most people in life, in any walk of life, have had help.
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of like, and like this is nearly such a reach or stretch, but like there are people like, I'm like, I know I laugh at this, but like there are people like, I worked in an off license for a year, and there was people coming in and out, and over the year I was working there, they were deteriorating. Like these people were snowmen in July level deteriorating. Like they were literally like corpses in front of me, and I was going, like, I would be handing them their bottle of vodka at like 10 o'clock in the morning, being like, "Oh, do you really need this? Like have you nothing you need to do today?" And like these people were like, "What do you mean? What's wrong?" No, I know I've a bit of a problem with drink, and like I know that sounds so extreme, but like these people didn't think they needed help. And like I suppose that's kind of one thing I definitely, the more I coach, the more I realize that like there are so many people that are just maybe they're getting coached by someone, and maybe the coach is a bit fucking they're not, maybe like coaches maybe following great practice, or maybe they have a bad relationship with their coach, or maybe they're self-coached, or they're winging it themselves, or maybe they're kind of like, "Oh, I'll be consistent now for 8 weeks, I'll stop for 8 weeks," and then they'd fall on and off the wagon. But like I think a lot of it is just that like a lot of people don't know how to ask for help, or they don't know how to look for help. And I think, and like that's across all walks of life. Like there's people in fucking like mental abusive relationships. There's people in like jobs they hate. There's there's loads of situations, and that's like across all dimensions of life that people struggle to ask for help. I think where like what we can do is be personable, available, and like I think even in like in a lot of situations, I think hanging on, like a big thing for me isn't getting new clients. A big thing for me is keeping the crop I have, because like I think where like the real value for me in coaching is helping people I really, really care about. And like, not to say that like if someone new comes in, I don't care. It's like, well, if we gel together, like obviously I will. But it's it's a big part of the thing is for me is that like I have a nice little team, I have a nice little gang, and like I just want all these people to achieve achieve their potential, gain loads of value out of the sport, and have fun doing it. Like, but I always look around the gym, and like I'm kind of in my head, I'm like, well, fuck me, if this fella had a bit of direction, or if she had a bit of whatever, like that, like you'd love to see them do well. And it's like for the same reason, like if like a client leaves you, and like some coaches take it really, really personally, you're just like, well, they need to do their own thing, or maybe there's certain circumstances that maybe you don't work well together, or maybe you did but now you don't, or whatever. And it's I think I think a lot of coaches, and even like you, like I'm sure you experienced it when you started out in the gym as well. Like a lot of people just assume PTs and online coaches, we call a spade a spade. A lot of people just assume we're fucking knobs, and like we do look like knobs. Like you put up a fucking, like we're those annoying people that people have our story muted. They're like, "Oh, shut up, another fucking podcast, shut up," do you know. Genuinely though. So like I do think a big part of it is like just being genuine, trying to be as normal as the two of us can, or whoever can, and just kind of put your be willing to put yourself out there and be willing to kind of like bridge the gap for people that you think need it. Like if there is someone and you're like, ah, fuck, they do need that help, or maybe if a client and they need that little bit extra from you. I think being able to do that for them is it's the job, like.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on the note there about people muting it. Actually, one of my friends told me the other day in the pub that he unfollowed me because he was sick of seeing my motivational posts. He's like, sorry, I had to unfollow. It's like, I don't care. I genuinely don't care. It's like, you're still my friend. You're probably never going to buy from me anyways. I don't really give a fuck. But yeah, like that's one thing I've definitely like taught way more about like over like definitely like the last few months, because like I don't know, when you're working in the online coaching space, like there is always the thing in the back of your mind is like, oh well, how can I grow my business kind of thing, right? And you see other coaches like posting about them scaling their business, and you're like, I want a little bit about that. But the more I've thought about it, the more I'm really concerned about like having an impact as opposed to just like making tons of money. Like making tons of money, right? It's fantastic. Like, you know, who doesn't want to have like dollar bills coming out of their fucking asshole? But like meeting somebody in person and like them saying that like you actually genuinely impact them. Like one thing I think about is like when I met the 3DMJ crowd for the first time, and like they don't have like they have big followings, but they don't have like super big followings, right? They don't like.
Yeah.
I'm sure they make decent money, but they probably are not like millionaires. But
Yeah.
they've like had such an impact on like the wider community, and like I think that's so much more valuable and so much like get so much more fulfillment from that. Like personally, I
Yeah.
would anyway, than I don't know, driving a Lambo. And like that's one thing that like I'm really happy in regards to like the people I work with, because I'd say the majority of my people that I work with at the moment, I'd say at least 90% of them have been working with me for like longer than a year. And
Yeah.
like I don't really have that. I don't really have much people dropping off. Like a lot of people, my retention is pretty good. I develop really good kind of connection with people, and it's only when I actually don't have people sign up for long enough. And that this is not like a money grab, but it's just like coaching takes, especially online coaching, takes a while to develop a relationship with people, especially when it's like behind the screen. And
Yeah.
like if you don't really kind of give it time, like it's hard to do it, right? If you just have a goal where you're just looking to get in shape for a holiday, like fair enough, we can do that in and out in like 12 weeks, whatever like that. See you later. However, you're looking for like long-term kind of change, is something like powerlifting as a goal, or like long-term bodybuilding, like they're going to be much longer processes. And you don't necessarily need to stay with the same coach for a long time, but a lot of times you're kind of gravitated towards a coach because either you like them in regards to their personality. Like there's not much difference between myself and yourself when it comes to like coaching. Realistically, like we probably have similar methodologies, similar practices, lived by similar principles,
Yeah.
but we're different people, and that's why somebody's going to go to you, somebody's not going to go to me. But like when it comes down to like again coaching people, like having that bigger impact on somebody, again, have meeting that person like maybe a year or two later, and then like saying that like you generally help them and change their kind of thought process around different stuff, like that's a massive win. And like again, it's just something that takes a long period of time. And as I said there, like I've clients who, just like you said there, who they maybe were that person in the gym that I would have saw that maybe was not making the best gains by themselves. After a conversation, they sign up and they're making better progress. Like they're kind of overcome plateaus, both like mentally and physically. And like
Yeah.
that like small conversation, that small kind of bridging of the gap is all it really kind of takes to maybe help somebody push forward. Because like you're always going to be limited to what you know, and then you're going to be limited by what you know and what you don't know, and then
Yeah.
as well where you get the information that is pushing your knowledge base further, right? You could go down the kind of rabbit hole of, I don't know, following functional fucking patterns, or like or Liver
Yeah.
King or something like that, right? And like
Yeah.
be completely warped. Or you could go down, I suppose, a more kind of evidence-based approach, right? And those things could have you have the dial moving completely different directions. And that again, that could just be from personal trainer talking to you, gym, like, I don't know, DMing your favorite online coach or something like that.
Yeah.
But it is, yeah, it's something I think about quite a lot, as you can probably tell from how animated I
Yeah,
got.
no, yeah, I'd be with you on that. I suppose it's that, like, in research we kind of talk about your epistemology, but I think even in coaching it comes into it as well. I suppose, like you just you have to accept a stance on reality, and how you interact with it. And I don't know. I hope people think a lot more about it. Was there anything else you wanted to cover?
Not really. I suppose I just wanted to touch on, how we've been doing over the kind of Christmas, and our kind of thought process around like the whole goal setting strategies. We've kind of covered a lot, but I suppose one of the reasons I actually wanted to just do the podcast with Duvas is, again, like we need short personality, man. We need to talk more. We're always getting other people on, so we need to kind of do this a little bit more kind of often. As great as it is to talk to other people, one of the reasons we actually started this podcast, if you're listening out, is because like we just chat shite, and sometimes when we press record, some stuff comes out, some good stuff comes out. I'm sure there was some useless stuff in there, but
Yeah,
that's the point of the podcast, really, isn't it?
there's maybe some nugget of wisdom in there, but yeah, I think definitely for 2024 we'll try and get more of these going. I think we've a couple of like exciting guests in the pipeline, but yeah, I think because like, I suppose, for like you said, like for the two of us starting, it was just to stay talking over COVID when you could only literally talk to someone through Zoom. But yeah, it's been a wild year. It's been a great year.
Yeah, it is, and we're only going to have a better year ahead.
How far off from 2024 are you now, time wise?
Oh, still like 8 hours. Yeah, still 8 hours. So you're a little bit closer. You'll be living in the future.
Yeah, I'll be living in the future now, around 3 hours. So yeah, I suppose, thanks everyone for listening. If you did listen, please give us a like on Spotify, give us a rating. We always appreciate it when you put it on your story. It not only gets word of the podcast out, but like, we love seeing when people listen to it. Like there was some random lad from, I don't know, I think he was from Norway or Finland, tagged us in the story last week, and like, I just think it's cool that some people actually take time to listen to us, and like, we do, like, the two of us really, really do appreciate it. Like we love doing the podcast, and like, we love when people have some value in it or appreciate it. So if you do like it, let us know, and even a message just for the validation that Shane and I so desperately need. So yeah, thanks. Is there anything else there you want to lob in?
No, I suppose echo all your thoughts there, as well as, obviously, if you are looking to get started up with coaching 2024, drop us a line. I'd be more than happy to help you. But other than that, yeah, hopefully you enjoy the podcast. Do all the things that Lawrence said to do. And yeah, we'll chat to you in the next one.